Hey guys, it's Psychosis here, and it's been a long time, but I have another book review for you guys. And today, after taking forever to finish it, since I just been out of reading, I guess, and whatnot, I have finally finished A Feast for Crows by George R. R. Martin, which is book 4 of A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, this is the fourth book. And yeah, it should probably have not taken me as long to read because this is the shortest book as of now in the series. It's 684 pages, which is still big, but it's smaller than even the first book. But yeah, and as you can see, I got this edition. Very fun orange cover. Very cool. And yeah, so today I'm gonna review it and say my thoughts on it. And I also should say before I start that this is my own thoughts, and I made sure that it was my own because the internet really hates this book. This is everyone's least favorite book in the series, and I wanted to see for myself if that was the case. And if you can tell by how long it took, I kind of fall into that in a way, which I will get to. But yeah, anyways, time to get to the review. And starting off with, this book continues exactly after, like just a straight continuation after the last book. And the prologue is really good. I don't know what it is. He writes these amazing prologues. So they start with a prologue, and then it gets to, but then that leads to the biggest issue with this book, is that just characters. Like, this book has a lot more point of view characters and chapter shifts like that. And most of the characters are just like the more side characters. And it's kind of, or just, yeah, and it's just like random. So you'll be reading it, and then it'll have a chapter about like one random character, and it'll have like sometimes it'll be like the only chapter following that character's point of view. It'll be like random, or it'll be a point of view character that hasn't been a point of view character, and then have that one chapter, and you'll read like hundreds of pages, and they finally have a chapter about them again from their point of view. So it's like kind of it kind of, yeah, and immediately after the prologue that happens, it's a point of view character that's never been a point of view character, and it kind of like killed my interest right away. But I kept reading. It took forever, and yeah. And then there's this thing where like characters change their names because they have to like switch their identities to stay safe and stuff. So then their names change after that to whatever name they picked or identity they picked for themselves in this book. And it's just kind of like silly at first if you've forgotten. But yeah. And like I said, it starts immediately after the events and it just continues from there. And yeah, but aside from that, though, another thing is that a lot of the major characters I liked aren't in this book, or major characters that were more essential to the story in the previous books. So Jon Snow is not in this book. He only appears like a chapter from Samwise's point of view, and then that's it. Which Samwise has a bunch of chapters and stuff, but he falls more in the background in this book. And yeah. Yeah, and then like Lord Stannis and all the wildlings and all that. That's not even in this book. Daenerys isn't even in this book. I know I've said plenty of times in previous reviews, I was never the biggest fan of her character, but when she's not in the, it kind of is like missing. You feel her presence missing though, because she gets so interwoven with how everything going on. Yeah, and then Bran and his buddies aren't even in this book either. He doesn't even appear once, and it just kind of, it's kind of like, yeah, it just kind of was disappointing because of that. But you get all the point of view characters. You get like the usual ones from before the previous book. You got Brienne, Jaime Lannister, his sister Cersei, and yeah, they appear still as point of view characters. And yeah, I mean, like I said, yeah, it just continues the events afterwards. Because of the character issue that I was talking about, it also leads to a really cool positive about this book, and I think that's the biggest positive of this entire book. This book expands so much on the world building of Westeros and the kingdom and all the and the world of this book series, because the other ones they did that and they talked about things and you learned about it from character dialogue and stuff. But this book expands on that. You get to see characters and people and places that weren't really touched on, like Bravos, Dorne, and the Ironborn. You get to see some of them and a bit of their culture a little bit. The Ironborn, the seafaring warrior people, the Greyjoys, like from the Greyjoys and stuff like that. You get to see that a bit. They follow as a character for about 3 or 4 chapters, point of view chapters, and yeah, and that was kind of cool because he expanded on that in Bravos, like I said, the random trading island. You get to see a bit of that as well. Yeah, and then this book has a huge this has a huge theme of like the religion of the kingdoms and stuff. They bring more of that up. It's not of like R'hllor and like that, but it's more of like the sparrows and the 7-pointed star, which is like a Bible basically, of and then the seven and their faith and all that. There's a lot of that in this book, like a lot more of that. And that's also kind of interesting to see how it works and its real world similarities to real world religions, which is actually pretty interesting. But that's probably the biggest positive I can give this book. Because even though it just continues the story, it's just kind of a slog at times. It's just, yeah, it's just the point of view characters. A lot of them, like I said, weren't as interesting. And the character shifts were kind of goofy. Even though it expanded so much on everything, it's just kind of whatever. And then there's this instance where like a lot of cool events happen, but because of how the dialogue goes along, it's like in the background. You hear a character talk about after the fact. It's like, well, why isn't that shown in the chapters? Or why can't we have a cool chapter or battle scene? Like, there's one scene where a character's talking about the events after this battle of this one character storming this fortress, basically. But you hear about how they won and stuff, and it's like, well, I wanted to see that. I mean, the previous books had that, but a little bit. Because, the structure of this book is just people, dialogue, and political scheming and stuff, which is fun, but it's just kind of annoying, and it goes so far into that, like, there's no, like, satisfying action or anything. Yeah, so, like, all these characters that were essential, villain characters, they die. They die in the background. There's one character I like. You find out he dies and that his body is strapped onto some wall somewhere. And it's like, well, that's stupid. And then you hear about all these battles in the background and places getting raided and captured and taken over and changing banners. And it's like, well, why isn't this happening? And there's a part of the book where there's an option for that to happen. But instead, the character just surrenders his castle. And it's like, why? I just don't get it. It was just really disappointing. And so, yeah, as it sounds like, I was kind of disappointed by this book. And I will have to specify, this book is not trash. This book does not suck. I still like this book. It's just, it was pretty disappointing from what I was expecting. And I think a large part of that has to do is it had to continue after A Storm of Swords. And I really liked A Storm of Swords. That book was like really good. And so this book kind of had a lot of shoes to fill, and it just did not. And yeah. And that's kind of the gist of it. It's just kind of like whatever book. It just continues the story, but it does it in just an average, normal way and nothing overly exciting. I mean, there's exciting parts. It gets exciting at the end. A character that pops up, a twist from the previous book pops up, but you have to wait like the whole book to see it. After the previous book had its amazing conclusion and ending chapters. Yeah, the ending of A Storm of Swords was like absolute peak. Yeah, and there's that twist that connects back to that. Well, you have to wait till the end of this book. We have to slog through it to get to that. It's just, it's just pretty funny. Yeah, so there's some satisfying ending things. Yeah, I will say the ending chapter for one character was really good and was hyped up the next book. But I imagine that the next book will probably hopefully be better than this. People dog on the fourth and fifth book all the time. And from what I gather, the fourth book is everyone's least favorite for the most part. And I think that is the case in my opinion too. I hate trying to go with the flow. And I'm not, but I genuinely think, yeah, my own genuine opinion, this is the worst book in the series so far. But I can't exactly say it's the worst because I still haven't read book 5, so I can't say anything about book 5. But as of now, for books 1 to 4, A Feast for Crows is the worst one. Like I said, it has a lot of good character expansion and stuff, but a lot of point of view characters I just wasn't into. And the story kind of just drags on in places, and just a lot of it is not satisfying, or it has cool sections but you hear people talking about it. I mean, the books were all like that, but there's like nothing overly satisfying. There's no battles, there's no like tension or anything, there's no weddings. Nothing of like that is like crazy good like that. It's just whatever. Like, this book just feels like as average as it could be for what he's trying or was trying to write. But like I said, it expands so much on the world. So like, it's kind of just like a funny book. It just exists, and then it has a lot of good things about it. But it just could have been way better. And like I said, it does not suck. This book is still really good, but this book still feels, compared to the previous books, it feels like such a slog. Like, I've read way worse books in my life, and this book is not one of them, or comparable to those books. It's still an amazing book, but it's just not, yeah, it's just not really what I was hoping it would be. And I think a lot of it has to do because it literally came after A Storm of Swords, the third book, and that's everyone's favorite book. And as of now, that's currently my favorite too, only followed by A Clash of Kings. And I still debate about which one of the two is better to this day. But yeah, so that's basically my gist of the review. As a final rating, I'll give this an 8 out of 10, believe it or not. Which is still a really high rating, but an 8 out of 10 book is not as good as a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10, clearly. And yeah, and aside from, and most of that has to do with just some parts not being satisfying and dragging on, and just kind of disappointed certain characters didn't appear, and a lot of point of view characters, and just nothing like overly exciting, or what could have been more exciting. And I imagine if that was in there, this book could have been like even better. Because yeah, even the twists of this book, I didn't even mention the twists. There are twists. All these books have twists, and that's like a core part of why people love these books. They weren't even as satisfying as the other ones either. Or some of them just had no effect on me. I was just kind of whatever. So it was just kind of just whatever. But yeah, that is going to be my review of this book, Storm of Swords. I keep showing the book cover, but I just really love the book cover of my version of my copy of it. But yeah, I'll give this an 8 out of 10. It's still a really good book. If you're reading the series, I'd still recommend reading it if you want to read all the books. But I imagine if you're into the series, you'd want to read it. But just wanted to mention that it's like the worst one so far. But yeah, anyways, that's my review. I hope you all enjoyed my review of A Feast for Crows, not A Storm of Swords, the wrong way. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed my review, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.